funny. These things come up over and over and over again. And we're always like, why does this keep coming up over again? And then you finally get it. And you're like, okay, I get it. I see why it had to keep coming up so that I finally
Get it.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's what all lessons are, right? It's going to keep coming up until you finally fucking get it. Oh,
Exactly.
you know, until you're like, all right, I understand now. What do I need to do? And then it opens up
And
because
that's
we're always
it.
fighting
And,
it.
and that what do I need to do is that place of surrender. Like, I
Yeah.
recognize that I can't do this on my own. What do I need to do?
Yeah, exactly. It's, doesn't it feel freeing though when you get to that point? When you're not in stuckness anymore? It's like, why
Yes.
was I keeping myself stuck this entire time when I could have just opened myself up?
Yeah. But at the same time, I have the realization that, in that stuckness, there was so much there that I needed. I needed to be stuck there to see the things that I would have bypassed. You know what I mean? So, it sucks in the moment, but
Yeah.
I came out so grateful, so
Yeah.
grateful. So,
And I feel like you rested a lot too during that time. Like you did a lot of rest and integration. So yeah, that's really important part of the process too.
yeah, my
Like,
body couldn't move if I wanted it to.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, like the feeling or that void that we're in sometimes when there's just no forward movement is really the universe saying, listen, you need to rest, integrate,
Mhm.
just chill. Chill
Yeah.
out. Chill the F out, girl. Chill out. Chill out. But all right, so do you wanna
Yeah, let's start talking about some self-love.
all right.
I am actually really excited about this topic today. Um,
Bye.
yes, we are at episode 5. We're so happy to have you. Thank you for keeping up with us and listening for this long. We love you. We are talking about self-love today
Yes.
and
Huge topic
celebrations
in celebrations of
make it
everything.
work. And celebration of this Pisces new moon, which welcomes in just so much newness, new compassion, more compassion,
Yeah.
um, and just that, I don't know,
Forward.
I don't want to call it lovey-dovey, but Pisces kind of has this very like dream like, very like kind of not ethereal, like
Very flowy.
yeah, like, more
Yeah.
like floaty,
Yeah,
floaty
floaty
energy.
because it's water. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about self-love today because I don't know, it was just a download earlier before I texted you. I was like, I really think it's important to talk about self-love because as we mentioned, it is the Pisces new moon. And I don't even know when this recording is going to we're going to launch this recording, but today is Friday, March 12th, and the Pisces new moon is on March 13th, which is the week before the equinox. 2021, by the way, guys, 2021. And a lot of the energies is really about forward movement and really allowing ourselves the permission to dream big and reach our dreams and really manifest what our heart's desires. But what I realize is some of the things that we want to manifest, there's a lot of healing of that self-love for ourselves that we need to do in order to be able to manifest things in our lives. Because a lot of the time, what truly keeps us from what we truly desire is the fact that we don't love ourselves enough to allow ourselves to dream big and to just do the things that we need to do for ourselves to be able to manifest the life that we want. So self-love is, I think, something that I'm still learning. um, I really believe that there's layers and layers and layers of how our version of self-love reveals itself to us. um, and yeah, I think there's just, the more we know ourselves, the more self-love we are able to cultivate for ourselves. I mean, I don't know about you, but like, okay, tell me, what was when you heard of self-love, whenever you heard it, years ago maybe, what was the first thing you thought self-love was? Like,
Ex
what did you know self-love to be?
exactly
And
how
be
it
honest.
sounds. Yeah, exactly how it
Okay.
sounds, like, just loving myself, but at the same time, it wasn't there was nothing to it. I actually didn't get it. I was
Yeah,
like, "Okay, we hear this self-love, like, what does it mean? Am I supposed to stand in the mirror and say, 'I love you'?" And the thing is, if you don't understand, then how are you supposed to, do
exactly.
the damn thing? And I
Ding,
think I
ding,
spent
ding.
so many years trying to self-love myself up, not knowing where to start, what it even means, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
people are running around doing that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people's definitions of self-love initially, and if you might be one of the lucky ones that really truly understands what self-love is because you were taught that way, but like I think initially, at least for me, and you tell me if this is what happened to you. I thought self-love was literally that, like saying to myself, I love me. I love me over and over again. It was like, but there was no action. There was literally no action. It was just me saying words and writing things down, but not actually showing myself
Mhm.
what that meant. It was such a disconnect.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, you're getting me excited now because that is it. That
That's
is
exactly what it's right.
no action behind it. No
Mhm.
integration behind it. No understanding behind it,
Yeah.
People are saying, you know, you got to practice self-love. Okay, well, practice implies that there is an action, but what is that
What
action?
is that action? Exactly. So like when you finally realized what that action was, what was the first thing that you did?
Oh, okay. So,
Like
okay,
what was the first, yeah, the I guess the second phase of your self-love.
yeah. So the second phase is really when things got deep because I went from just standing in the mirror in my superwoman saying I love you like 50 million times to actually doing things for me. I had to ask myself, really about the love that I wish to receive, in general, not necessarily from just a partner or, my family but, in all circumstances and in all, how do I just want to receive love in general? And then how can I do those things for myself? And I used to always think, oh, it'd be so nice to like have a guy bring me flowers or draw me a bath or just really be nice for my family to, recognize me in this way, or it'd be really nice to just go out in the world and just have people receive me. So I really just got to action on those things, and it was really fun because it's fun to date yourself and
Yes.
fun to take care of yourself because self-care really
Yeah.
falls in line with
Yeah.
self-love. I think a
Mhm.
lot of times we don't actually take proper care, even just to just properly
Moisturize for sure.
yeah.
Properly moisturize. Yes.
Moisturize is a better
Yeah.
word. Yeah, and I just became more conscious and aware of my body and its needs and, my
Yeah.
skin, this this body that I live in, needs to be taken care of and loved as well. It's not just about me, it's about supporting my body as well,
Yeah.
supporting my mind, supporting and protecting my energy.
Yeah.
Change the game. Look, still deep into the self-love journey. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong.
Yeah.
Worthiness is a whole nother attachment
Which is
that,
like phase 10. But I
yeah,
think
but
for phase 2, it's really important because I think a lot of people like you and I are so aligned because first phase, same. Second phase, same.
yeah,
I think that which is actually a really great sort of initial dive into self-love is the self-care practices.
yeah,
And I mean, yeah, to your point, like there are all these things that we want from other people, but why can't I give that to myself? Like there's one self-love practice I started in my late 20s, early 30s. Every Friday I would buy myself a bouquet of flowers
mm,
because flowers to me represented whenever I got flowers from someone, it was because they were apologizing.
yeah,
And I actually wanted to flip the script. And I wanted to say, no, I want flowers to mean love. And I want flowers to mean that I love me.
I love
So
that.
I kind of flipped that script, and every Friday I do buy myself a bouquet of flowers. Lately, it's been a little crazy. I buy myself like 3 or 4 because of my altars, but you know,
Oh, that's
that's one thing.
cool.
You said something really amazing. You said date yourself. Like how amazing it is to date yourself. Like I think that date like incorporating that practice into the self-love rituals,
Yeah.
dating yourself was really, really profound only because a lot of people were like, "Wait, you you go to dinner by yourself or you go to like a restaurant by yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why? What's wrong with that?" And a lot of people can't stand being alone.
Yeah.
And I think one of the really big things that we need to learn is how to be alone with ourselves. Because, A, if we do not like ourselves, what makes us think someone else is going to like us? If we don't like our own company
Mhm.
and we expect other people to like our company, like how messed up
Even
is that?
even go as far as to say to love our company.
Exactly. And even go as far as saying loving me. Like
Mm,
if I can't love myself enough to take myself out on a date
yeah.
and be by myself and be with myself and actually laugh at my own jokes because I do that a lot. I mean, talk to myself. I mean, we do that a lot.
Uh-huh.
How can I expect other people to want to spend time with me if I can't spend time? And
Mm,
I feel like also like we learn so much about ourselves.
I agree. I agree. And for me, it was a game changer in dating, because it helped me to take away a lot of that expectation that
Hmm.
I had for
Yeah.
my partner. I came from a place where I expected so much from my partner. And, eventually you have to ask yourself, why? Why do I have so much expectations, so many expectations, no standards for myself?
Ooh, standards are a great one about self love.
Yeah,
Phase 20.
yeah, exactly. So I noticed that the more that I was able to do these things for myself, the less I expected from my partner.
Hmm.
And um, and it changed the game for me. And just the type of relationships and people that I attracted into my life was so different. Um, and it's still a struggle sometimes, but overall, it really has been life changing because I think a lot of people put so much pressure on their partner, you
And the
know.
relationship, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for me, I just feel that it's really comes down also to like a lack of acceptance. We got to accept our partners and the people around us as the individual beings that they are, and yeah, it's not fair for you or for them to put
Yeah.
so much expectation, especially when you're not doing the work to
Yeah.
provide that for yourself.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. So when I first got introduced to self love, obviously we talked about it was just words at that point. And
Mhm.
then my next phase of self love and cultivating self love with myself was all about self care, all about, buying myself the things and taking myself out to dates and bubble baths and, little mini rituals and lighting candles and incense and like lotion and like all the things for my body. Right. Um, you had mentioned earlier body, mind, and spirit, I think you said, or body, mind, and energy, which is really solar spirit. But I think self love is really about cultivating sort of body, mind, soul alignment. But what I want to be honest about is those for a very long time, that was all the self love I knew. It was literally words of affirmations to myself and then buying myself gifts. That was it. And I think that's the reason why I ended up in a relationship that was so bad for me because there's another layer of self love that we need to cultivate for ourselves, which is really about, you had just said, the work, like really doing the work to heal ourselves. Because denying ourselves healing is the opposite of self love, right? It's the lack of. But anyway, so while I do believe now that my self love journey has evolved so much today, there was a point where my self love was just a very compartmentalized into a few things, not realizing there were so many other layers to it. So I think that's a really important distinction. And that's a really important thing to be very, very aware of, because we might think that we love ourselves because we give ourselves gifts and like we lotion it up and like we have, body care practices and we eat healthy and all this stuff. But there's sort of a deeper layer of self love, which is very much aligned with the soul.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's where it gets tricky, because until we are aware that we're not giving ourselves love in that area, we will always think self love is only these 3 or 4 things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It was so you put that perfectly. And
Because I
just,
learned my lesson. I want everyone else to learn that lesson too.
you know, and
That it's not just about bubble baths, guys.
people want to bypass the lessons, but that's how we learn from each other, right? And
Exactly.
come up with
Yes.
that
Oh,
beautiful wisdom that people need to hear.
I love that. Like, self love is really about not bypassing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the other question is, what is anti self love? Like, what are the things that we do that is not conducive to us loving ourselves, or that is not a reflection of us loving ourselves?
Yeah.
Don't put baby
Yeah.
in a corner.
Anti
Okay, this is
self-love. Ooh.
not even anti self love, or it's just more of like a lack of self love. Like, what's a good example of, or examples of, when we don't show ourselves self love? Because sometimes, in order to understand what self love is, we need to understand what we do that isn't,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I'm very familiar with this one. It's easy for me to answer. Um,
Same, girl, same.
yeah, the first thing that comes up is the lack of boundaries, the lack of assertiveness. Um, and that's one that, to be honest, I still have to dig a little bit deep there because I haven't really, I kind of understand where it comes from, but um, just the whole putting other people before yourself, but not knowing why,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, I grew up afraid to say no.
Hmm.
And that was a huge, that put me in a lot of situations that I didn't want to be in. And then that went from not being able to say no to being in a situation that I don't want to be in and being very uncomfortable and still not knowing how to find my way out, you
Yeah.
know? And a lot of wounds come from that. A lot of trauma comes from that,
Yeah.
Uh, but, also another one is just even with sex, just not knowing how
Mm.
to.
That's a deep one.
Yeah, I know, but I'm gonna go there.
It's okay. We can go there. I want you to go there because I think it's really, really important to talk about that, because that's probably uncomfortable, but go
Yeah,
for it.
I think that there needs to be a lot more conversation around sex. And, I understand I'm a very pleasure driven person. So I understand not wanting to stop and take that time to really discuss boundaries and wants and needs. I very much like to just be in the moment. Be in the moment. I thought it was really weird when this whole let's discuss sex with our partners before having sex became a thing. I thought, oh, how boring, like I have to stop and have a conversation. But I'm realizing now the importance of it because I think about all the times that, I was in these kind of, uh, not entanglements, but
Situations.
situations and didn't know how to express my wants and my needs and my desires, whatever. And then just feeling, I feel like women are very suppressed to start with, and there's definitely women are raised to believe that we need to be the one to give to our partner. Things look differently now, but we'll just say our partner. And you automatically kind of just go, whether you're dominant, more assertive, subservient, whatever, there is still this kind of built into our DNA feeling that we need, like we cannot speak up. And that's why I love seeing this rise of women speaking up. And I think that women have been very suppressed for a reason because we are very powerful. And once we learn how to tap in and tune into that power and speak up, things will start shifting. But yeah, a lot of my like anti self-love has definitely been around sex, because not asking and being in such a vulnerable, you're dealing with your body image, your so many things, and the way that can make you feel. um it was a huge act of not loving myself, and then having to pick up all of those pieces. And I don't blame the other person, I don't blame myself. I acted at the time, the best I knew how. But the more that we can talk about these things now, I think the conversation is very important, because especially entering such a space that is, as sacred as sex, there needs to be conversations. And it's not just about the woman, with the men too, there needs to be the conversation, so that both people enter that space, feeling. I want to
Safe?
read.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like feeling safe.
I came across a I don't know, Instagram post this morning,
Mhm.
and it kind of seems relevant right now. And I just wanted to read it because I thought it was just wow. It's by at Sophie, I can't, it got cut off, but it's at by Sophie Lua, it looks like. But she wrote a beautiful caption, and if I may read it
Of
really quick.
course. Of course.
Okay. It says, most people are pleasure starved. When this is the case, your body just wants to reach for the easiest pleasures. Think sugar, binge, watching Netflix, alcohol. When your body is pleasure starved, it will reach for anything around it, regardless of what's actually healthy for it or what feels in alignment with what you want to do in your life. You will not feel whole. And you will feel like there's something that you need to make you whole, to make you perfect. She says she was in the state for so many years. When your nervous system becomes full of craving, it's much harder to reach goals and live the life that you want. When you feed your body consciously with pleasure on the regular, your body starts to feel more complete. It starts to feel whole. You're not running around hungry to be filled with pleasure anymore. You've already filled yourself with pleasure. You're already good. You will feel more whole. And then life becomes this expression of what you actually really want, what you really stand for. And then this pleasure can become the path of your spiritual, it got cut off. But I think that really falls in line, with what we're talking about as well, because a lot of people act and, with anti self love by seeking just this constant pleasure.
Yeah.
Like, how can I feel this,
It's
in the
filling
moment?
a void that we were never taught to fill ourselves, right? And it goes above and beyond, I think, sex. I think it goes above and beyond that. But you
Yeah.
know, to your point, as women, I can only speak to women because that I am a woman.
Yeah.
I can only speak to my experiences, but like um we were never taught to tap into that, because I mean, growing up more religious, it was very much a, if you think about it, if you even do it before you get married, it's a bad thing. So we're never taught to really explore that about ourselves. But I think now that I'm older, and I think we talked about this before, like I have, I've we've given, as part of the self-love practice, we give ourselves permission to be able to tap into that pleasure and tap into that sensuality and tap into that sexuality in a very different frame of mind and a different, very different perspective, because then now it's almost like, well, damn. I have an eros and pleasure coach, because I was like, I want to understand my sexuality a little bit better,
Mhm.
because that's part of this whole self-love practice. And I was like, wow, I've never actually really had sex, like good sex, or sex period, that the way it's meant to be. You said it earlier, sacred sexuality, sacred sex, that's what it's supposed to be for us. And we're never we were taught to kind of just not be expressive about it, so we always took on our partner's idea of what sex should be, when in reality, as women, it's a completely different experience.
Mhm.
And ladies who are listening, I know this is kind of probably a very triggering part of self-love, but knowing and understanding your sexuality and allowing yourself the full expression of that is a really huge part of what loving yourself is,
Yeah.
and allowing yourself that,
Hmm.
right?
And allowing yourself to explore that, I think, anyway, that can,
I think this is like this could be like a whole nother
I know that's
a
what
whole nother episode outside. So like sacred sexuality, I love that idea. I love that topic. I am actually reading this book right now. It's called The Alchemies of Horus and the Sex Magic of Isis.
Mhm.
Beautiful book. Anyway, so yeah, so I think I will say another way we don't show ourselves self-love is when we have to watch how we think, or what we think about and ourselves, what we think about ourselves and how we speak about ourselves.
Mhm.
Because how many times have you been doing something, you're like, you stupid, and
Right.
you're like, oh, I shouldn't be talking about myself that way.
Yeah.
Like though, like it might sound like such a small thing, but the chances are you probably do it so much you don't like we don't speak about ourselves in the kindest way.
Yeah.
And that is, again, another version of not showing ourselves love, because we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to be compassionate to ourselves. We have to forgive ourselves. Ooh, forgiving ourselves. The only way we could be kind, compassionate, and forgive others is if we give it to ourselves first,
Yeah.
right? Like, again, something that we're not really taught, kind of inadvertently, not really.
Not
Like,
really.
I wasn't taught that. Like, I feel like it was always outward. It was always like, oh, forgive that person. Oh, give that person, it's almost like do for others first before you. But
Yeah.
in order for us to be able to do for others, we need to learn it to do it for ourselves so we can embody all of that so that we can actually radiate that,
Mhm.
right? I feel like that's an easy.
I agree, and that's why I have a question to ask you. I'm
Okay.
curious, what what is it like, what is a toxic behavior around love that you feel has been normalized in society? And I think we
Codependency.
all have.
That was so quick. I was like codependency because I was very codependent. Codependency, right? I mean, is that a big thing that you had to learn about self-love?
Yeah, I do feel like they kind of raise us to be just so dependent on each other, even just how, we're raised to think, we have to meet a partner, we have to build a family, and people get so fixated on that. It does kind of just create this very codependent behavior right off the bat, like I have to find a partner. Well, I have to find a partner is a very desperate energy, right? And um, yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think a lot of people are struggling
Yeah, I
with.
think I see codependency a lot. It's really codependency is a lot of things. It's people pleasing.
Mhm.
It's doing for someone when you know they can do it for themselves, but you feel obligated.
Yeah,
I can't even, did I say that word weird? Obligated to
yeah,
do it for them.
right.
Codependency is when, at least for me, I was mothering my partner
Yeah.
because I didn't feel like they were doing what they needed to do in their relationship. So that's
Mhm.
another like codependency is just so many things, but those are like the three things that I know I was constantly doing in relationships. So again, not realizing what codependency was until like the last year and a half and really healing from that, I realized how many ways I showed myself I didn't love myself.
Mm.
And guess what? That was all that was coming to me. It was almost like, why can't someone love me? Well, girl, you don't even love yourself.
Yeah.
You don't even, you don't even do the things for yourself that you should be doing because you're too busy trying to do things for everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, you can't, like, what's the saying? Um we can't give from an empty cup,
Right.
right? We have to fill ourselves first in order for us to be able to, to give. But I think toxic behavior, that is one of the biggest toxic behaviors. And I will say I'm the one who played that.
Yeah.
I will own up to the fact that I was toxic in my codependency until I realized what it was. And then I loved myself enough to heal it and
Hmm.
then give myself all the things that I was giving to other people.
Right.
No more people pleasing. Mm-mm. You don't
Yeah.
like it? Sorry, too bad. So sad.
Same, same. No, I agree with that, 100%. And I think the second one I think of is actually Valentine's Day. I think
Mark Holiday.
Valentine's Day puts, and this thing it starts young. Think about when you were in preschool,
Yeah.
having to buy cards for your classmates, hoping that they give you one back. They start us off seeking valid.
So young. So young.
Yeah, they start you off so young, seeking that validation, wondering, am I good enough?
Mm-hmm.
And I have to give this thing in order to receive back.
Yeah. The
And
worst is when, like, sorry to interrupt you, but the worst is, and it just came to mind. You know how, like, remember you would buy flowers for people and
uh
then they would give it to you in class and everyone was like, you
oh,
get
the like
one?
love grams.
Oh my God. Like, how effed up is that?
Right. And you
To,
feel so bad if you didn't receive one. And
yes, you're
the whole
indoctrinating all these
class,
kids.
the whole class had to watch you.
Yeah, not get anything.
Exactly.
It was like, what? It's like you're not even teaching, like you're indoctrinating them into what you just said,
Yeah. And
like
then you grow up
validating from others.
and you have all of these sad people who hate love because
I
they're
hate Valentine's Day. And it's
yeah.
like,
And what do you think that's saying?
mhm.
So that's definitely a big one for me
That
and
is a very toxic holiday, I will
very
say.
toxic.
Very I mean, I think a lot of the holidays are very toxic if you really think about it. But Valentine's Day,
A
especially from a
love
self-love
episode,
perspective.
okay?
This is the love episode, so we're going to talk about Christmas another time. I'm kidding, guys. More so in the gift giving side of that, but
Yeah. I
no,
mean, and same with the Valentine's Day with there's so much expectation
expectations.
and
That's what it is.
comparing is what's give me a word.
A comparison. Like, no, it is.
Yeah,
It's like
comparison.
it makes you compare yourself to others because what tends to happen is like you're on Instagram and you're like, oh my God, it almost like it validates people's loneliness and sadness when in reality we're not lonely or sad, we're just hurt and we need to heal that for ourselves,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
But it, like, that holiday just makes you, it like, there's a knife and it like cuts you in the heart and like it gets you in the heart and like it gets you to a place of like, and then you go into anger and resentment,
Yeah.
which
And
is
that's
again
why this
not
wholeness that we just talked about or that I read about is so important because then and the whole thing with social media just amplifies that because you're only seeing a small side of things. A woman
one day.
or a man can be in the most abusive relationship, but
Yeah.
they decide they're having a good day and he brings her like 48 roses and picks her up in a Bugatti and Shirley in New Jersey is like, oh my God, I didn't even get one flower today,
Exactly. Yeah.
and is deciding that she's worthless and will never find a partner and she's unlovable and whatever narrative
Yeah.
she has going on based on a tiny ass snapshot, one moment that we don't even know, first of all, if it's real, because we do live in a time where people will just create what they want you to see.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the world is basing their thoughts about
Yeah.
themselves on
On that.
fraud.
This is actually a really good conversation about what we were talking about earlier. So, you know, part of self-love is identifying those toxic traits that we used to subscribe to and then understand where we can shift our mindset
Mhm.
to provide, to kind of give us more of that love that we need, right? So when you said comparison, we were talking about this earlier about how, you know, when you see something that you really like about someone's life
Yeah.
and you start to get to a place of anti self love, which is comparison, jealousy, you flip that script to make it a little bit more loving to yourself and say, okay, well, this is the universe showing me that that's possible for me too.
Mhm.
And then flipping the script even more and saying, okay, how can I get that?
Yeah.
Or my version of that? What do I need to do for myself to be able to get that? Because then you're flipping the script from anti self love to actually showing yourself and really owning and taking your power back from the outside thing and saying, okay, all right, soul, all right, universe, I want to show myself more love. How do I do that in this particular situation where I'm jealous of this one person because of this one thing? How can I show myself that love versus the jealousy? Right.
Right.
So I think that's a really good lesson that I learned.
Yeah. Same. Same.
Right.
And I mean, that's a really important lesson. And
So important.
more important than that, I think it's necessary, and I think that really shifts into what do we know of self-love now?
Oh my gosh. Ah, my heart is so full that you just asked that question because my self love is so much more potent than it used to be. And I could really feel it in my heart because I actually practice all of it and I embody all of it. So it's not just about saying the things and writing the things down. I love me, but no, I mean, when I say I love me, I'm like, I actually feel it and I know that I love myself because I've shown myself all the love.
Yes.
Of course, there's layers to it. I feel like in a month, I'm going to find another layer of this self love for myself, right?
Right.
So it's not just about the showing myself. It's not just about the self-care practices. I mean, I do so much self-care practices. Like there was a point in my 20s, I didn't even have a skincare practice. And
Yeah.
your skin is what? Your entire body, right? And then finally I realized, oh, this is a form of self-love. Self-care is so my self-care practices are like, I mean, I oil it up, I adorn myself. I mean, I'm not wearing it now, but I wear a crown. I like when I'm home alone, I wear a crown. I mean, I adorn myself with with crystals and anoint myself with oil. I literally will scrub my body with salt and just love on my body.
Mm.
Another like as far as body, like I've learned to actually feed myself properly. Like you were talking about filling ourselves with like food and like junk food and all that stuff earlier with that with what you read. Oh my
Mhm.
god, I was like the number one person to be like, "Oh, I need to eat and I'm emotionally eating now because I'm so sad." But anyway, so that's a layer of self-love that I learned. I mean, self-love to me is really just about taking the time every day, every single day, taking the time to show myself one form of love that I can show myself in that day. Because if you're not giving it to yourself, I'm telling you right now, and I've learned this the hard way, if I do not give myself that, I cannot expect other people to give me the love because I am the only one that can fulfill it. And I really think that cultivating self love for ourselves is really, really the only way we can understand what unconditional love is.
Yeah.
Because if we can love ourselves in spite of our imperfections or seeming imperfections, then you're able to really reflect that outside of you and like love other people in spite of their imperfections. And until I learned that lesson, I was always like, ugh, judging, judgy Judgerson. You
Mhm.
know, I was always judging, I was always complaining, I was always doing all these things, but then it just wasn't working. So I mean, this self love journey is, I mean, my heart is so full, so full. And I can really, really honestly say I do love me, all of me. There are going to be layers of it. There are days that I'm just like, ugh, but it's okay. We're learning, we're growing, we're healing, we're evolving. And I mean, just give you, here's another thing that I've actually been telling myself lately is love me more than whatever it is you're about to do that's not good for you. Love yourself more than going back to that guy you know you shouldn't be going back to. Love yourself more than being a doormat. Love yourself more than that addiction. Love yourself more. Dot, dot, dot. You fill in the blanks, right? How do you
Mm,
feel about that?
I know. More like vibrating and fuzzy over here. That was just
I
saying
feel good.
you could preach self-love church today.
We just did. Drop the mic.
Oh man. Yeah, that's what do I add to that? Yeah, that's it. You know, for me, discipline was a huge one for me.
Ooh.
And like you said, choosing you, choosing me, choosing Jenna, and recognizing, like seeing myself as whole and recognizing that like I am one with like I think a lot of people just don't think about their body. You know, I think about my body
Yeah.
and all that it does for me. And why would I neglect something that supports me so beautifully? And how can I like feed my body, you know, in a way to support me better? How can I feed my mind or, you know, how can I feed my soul? And for me, it really just came down to discipline. Um, because it's easy, you know, like what I was reading, to drop into the simple pleasures because, you know, we're just reaching when we're not content with ourselves, we're reaching. And you'll see a lot of people who struggle with self-love usually have some extreme form of addiction, whether it's food or sex or TV binging or, you know, whatever it is.
Thing.
And I think it's important to catch yourself and recognize those moments because that is an escape. It's a distraction from facing something that is coming up within yourself. And I think those are the moments that have been very important to me is catching myself in those moments of addiction and asking myself, what do you need? What do
Oh,
you need that I'm
beautiful
not giving
question.
you right now that you're like looking for this escape? You know, what do you need? Like when you catch yourself going and sitting in front of the TV and you know you're about to watch, you know, a whole season of a show, you know, because you have that feeling, you know, and a lot of people like to tell you, oh, don't feel guilty about it. You know, if that's what you want, that's what you want. Don't feel guilty about it, but ask, what is it that I need right now?
Mhm.
Um, and that has really been, you know, the transformation for me on my self-love journey. Um, and you know, it's not easy and I'm still in the thick of it, but I can say that I love who I am and I respect myself
Ooh,
because
sex is a good one.
when
Oh.
I think back, you know, I didn't have a lot of respect for who I was in the past, you know, but I look at who I am now and I respect myself. And I look at the reflection in my life and in my world that I live in and the people that reflect, you know, the things that I feel for myself. And it just shows me, and it's that confirmation and that validation from the universe that what you give to yourself, you will get in return. And that in itself is like that that beautiful dangling carrot from the universe that just keeps me feeling so excited to be on this journey and to continue to better myself, you know, and give myself all of those things that I deserve and knowing that I deserve it and being unwavering in that thought that I deserve this, you know. And you know, worthiness is a tough one, something I still struggle with, especially as the universe is pushing you to grow and to evolve and to reach for things that you never thought were possible for yourself. You'll often ask yourself like, why? Like, how am I worthy of this? Why am I worthy of this? I don't think I'm worthy of this, you know. And you know, the universe will tell you, yes, you are, and will put you in position, you know, and get you ready for all that you desire to receive in your heart. And I see now that all of these things, you know, are you know, happen because you have to dig within there and you have to see that you are deserving and that you are worthy and that, this life that we have come here for, this, our dharma, this purpose, this inheritance of abundance, that it's already there. It's just, I think a lot of people feel like we have to do something for it, but we just have to tune in to what is already there. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned on this is this love, these things are already here for me. It's there. And these things that have come up, it's just helping me to see how to tune in, tune into the love that I deserve, tune into the love that is there for me, to the love that I am. Um, yeah, that's
Ah,
that's the
so
self-love that I
beautiful.
know now.
You know, it is beautiful that you ask yourself those questions, because I think that's what everyone who's listening right now, I think that might be like the most practical way of really understanding where you are at with your self-love, right? Is what do you want? What do you need today?
Yeah.
Such a simple question, but we don't really usually ask ourselves that question because we don't feel, to your point, worthy enough to ask ourselves that question sometimes. But that's a very practical tool to use. Ask yourself the questions. Again, this self love journey is really the mere act of asking yourself a question, is really getting to know yourself more, so that your soul and the universe can reveal to you what self-love is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a layer by layer process. It's going to be a unveiling of your truth of what self-love is to you.
Yeah.
um, and there's, again, practical ways of doing it. I mean, okay, so what are the three, if there are three things that, apart from asking ourselves the questions, what are the three things that people can start doing to really cultivate self-love for them?
Yeah, I think for for me, I feel that body is a important one, moving the body, taking care of the body. Because again, our body really is what supports us on this life journey. And, whether it's just moving it a bit or, eating, well whenever you can, or
Right.
that's a huge part of self-love for me because I recognize just how much my body does for me, and just neglecting the body, it's so much more than just saying, it's a deep feeling within that,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of people they're not able to see it that way. But when you're not supporting your body's not able to support you.
Mhm.
And then we wonder, why do I feel, so bad
Shitty.
about yeah. So that's the first one, recognize, first of all that your body does for you,
Mhm.
and honor that.
Yeah.
um, the second one is definitely, I think mental health is very important. Mental and emotional health play a big part in self love. And like you said, it's the stories that you tell yourself, so to guard your words, guard your mouth,
Yes.
um, and to really just do that practice of, tell yourself a good story today.
Mhm.
um, and I think it's so important when you start your day, and we don't, we can't get it right all the time, but to just be mindful, when waking up. I really try my best as soon as I wake up to tell myself the story of the day. This is how the day is going to go today. This is the kind of day that we're rooting for today, because the moment I wake up and I don't take that time and I just start going, and I haven't set up my day, then anything can happen. So that'd be the second. And the third would be just the self-care for me. Just doing something nice that feels good for my body, whether it be a bath or
Mm.
just
Yeah.
like I like to make these little, like, you kind of like oils with essential, adding these little things in there and just slathering it all over my body. It just feels good. And just having that moment with my body, to just really look at it. Like I like to look at myself in the mirror and instead of judging, like just say nice things and to notice like the beauty. Because I that's something that I really struggled with is looking at my body. um, I've always tried to get attention from men and would try to hear things from them like, oh, you look good, or this
Yeah.
and that. But I never actually felt those things for myself. So I had to hear it from someone else. And I would always set it up to hear it from someone else, not believing 1 ounce of what they were saying to me. It was really just a temporary satisfaction. And I've really gotten into the practice of just bearing it all in front of my mirror and really just, I don't know, not just studying, but connecting to my body and saying, I really like, that one curve, or, I like the way like my belly button looks, or, I like, oh, I feel like my skin looks really smooth, just complimenting myself has done a lot, and really just seeing the beauty in my body. And um I think that's a really tough one, and a lot of people think because I'm of a thinner frame, that it's just automatic,
Yeah.
think.
We all have our issues.
Yeah, but I struggle a lot to see myself as like that I have a nice body or a beautiful body. And um, that has been the biggest for me, actually, is being able to look at myself,
Mm.
and to like what I see truly. Um,
That's actually really good homework for anyone that's listening. Guys, get naked, stand in front of your mirror, and start looking at yourself and identifying what you love about your body. I think that's a beautiful self-love practice. And we don't do it enough. And
and
I really don't think we like when if guys, if you do decide to do this, like make it nice. Like talk about self-care, like make it nice, like light a candle, put on some nice music. So I do that. I do some of I actually do sometimes I do this from an embodiment practice standpoint, but yeah, like look at yourself in the mirror, look yourself in the eyes and ask yourself, what do I love about my body?
yeah,
And instead of looking at what's wrong with it, I invite everyone to really look at and appreciate what you love about it. It could literally be, oh, I really like my earlobe. Who knows? I don't know. It could be like, oh, I really love how my neck and my décolleté look. And I love the feel of my skin. Like, honestly, like, do that for yourself. Show yourself. Because I will say the body thing is a huge anti self love because we do say a lot of things about our body. Like, we put ourselves through really rough diets and not eating because we think we're too fat. Or we're like, oh, we see someone more beautiful because, again, society has shown us that there's only one beautiful body, right? Which is like, unless you're a model that's like 5'11", you're not. So I think that's actually, that's a really beautiful practice that you just shared. And I invite everyone to do that and really feel into it. Let that music kind of fill you and allow yourself the opportunity to really, really love on yourself in that way. And I think that's because that's so uncomfortable for us. So if you can get past the discomfort of doing that, then you could do all the other self-love practices because they're easy,
yeah.
you know?
I also want to add, if I may, is
Of
also just
course.
the balancing. This is one that is fresh to me because I'm literally going through this right now and learning, but the balancing of our masculine and feminine energy, I think
Mm,
plays a huge part in self-love, because I feel like the feminine energy is very much one of receiving.
mhm.
And if
Sure.
there's an imbalance and you're tapped more into one over the other, vice versa, you're not really able to, I don't know, when we're in the masculine, we're very like just this analytical and overthinking and very like go, go, go and
No
act.
rest.
Yeah.
No rest for the weary is the masculine energy. It's
Yeah.
corporate America is
Right.
masculine energy.
So especially speaking to women right now, who tend to be more in the masculine. I think the practice that we both just discussed is very important, but also just even finding ways to tap into that feminine energy. I mean, it's been really life changing for me in a matter of days. Whether it just be like putting on some sensual music and body movement, is just so important, especially while tapping into that feminine energy. And it really does kind of just awaken this goddess within. And you get glimpses of the power that is just
Mm.
inside
Yeah.
of you already, that you don't need to seek. It is there. You just need to like unleash it. And um,
I actually want to share a playlist that I created for embodiment movement, that what you were just talking about, like really feeling into it and allowing your feminine energy to flow through you. It's called Goddess Spirit Tantrika playlist.
we can put
I
that.
think we should put it somewhere so anyone could I'm gonna send it to you. You should
Yeah,
get a
send
little
it
sexy
over.
tonight.
I'll get it on. But yeah, I'll put that in the show notes so we can share that with you all. Yeah, thank you for that.
No, it's true. You're right about that because again, we're not taught to understand that, which I think is another great conversation to have another time, the whole masculine feminine energy dynamic.
Yeah,
Um, because I think there's a lot there. There's definitely a lot there. There's definitely a lot to unpack there. But to your point, just flowing and moving with your body and really, because like when you flow and move your body, you tap into your body more. You
yeah,
tap into your emotions and you tap into, this physical, because we don't do that. We're very detached from our body,
right.
very detached.
Not to mention just all the trauma that is stored in
That's
our
stored.
tissue, and
Yeah.
just that movement alone is such an active release.
Yeah. Yeah. I I think this is such a beautiful self-love practice. I really invite everyone to try it out.
Move that body.
Get sexy. Yeah,
Yes.
you know.
And circling back to the questions, like journal prompts, journaling is so important.
Mhm.
There's a woman that I love so much, and she's quite well known for just making this very powerful, like, journal prompt book. I can't remember her name right now, and I want to give her credit, but she says, the importance of the questions we ask ourselves. If you ask yourself a good question, your higher self will give you a good answer. You ask yourself a shitty question or like a poorly, thought question, you're going to get a poor answer. So
Yeah.
just, I think a lot of people, when they're asked to do journal prompts, they're like, eh.
Oh, you know how many times people are like, I don't journal, and I'm like, okay. I don't know what to say because journaling has really helped me through a lot of trauma and a lot of like understanding myself. But
That's
okay.
why I go through my chant. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to love. I'm not here
You're
to.
right. I'm not here to judge. You do you. At some point, the universe will unveil journaling to you. It's not your time yet to
As
understand
I'm,
journaling.
as I'm texting you in the chat right now, I feel you.
I feel you. Oh my God. Yeah. But
It
yeah.
is so important because, first of
Beautiful.
all, writing and journaling is such a great way to connect with your higher self. And I mean, what a way to get these like divine messages. But like she said, ask a good question, you'll get a good answer. Ask a bad question, you'll get a bad answer. So try.
But I like that you incorporated body, mind, soul, because I really think self-love is all about body, mind, soul alignment. So however you get there is the journey,
Right.
and a lot of it really is asking yourself the right questions and knowing thyself. Isn't that, wasn't that who said that? I don't even know who said that, but someone said that. Know thyself. It's really about knowing ourselves, and
Yeah.
the more we know ourselves, the more we know how to create and co-create with the universe, because then we know what we want.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta learn to trust ourselves.
Mhm.
Um, and know ourselves. By knowing ourselves, we can begin to trust ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah.
else. Um,
But I love this conversation. I love self-love. I love the minute you intend to go on the self-love journey, I mean, just be prepared for just some amazing things happening,
yes.
right?
All right. What can we do to cultivate more self-love?
I mean, I think we just talked about it. Like, honestly, we just, and practices,
Yeah, but let's
self-care
go deeper,
practices.
like on a societal level. Like, how do you think
Ooh.
we can, really make change, like real change, so that like all of humanity can begin to see themselves as, these holidays like Valentine's Day aren't helping. The TV that is being watched is constantly feeding people to believe certain things. There's, the social media is slowly transforming the behaviors of people, so I just mean like by perhaps platforms or communities, like what are ways that we can kind of change the narrative on a societal level to
I think we
cultivate?
have to change it at an individual level before we can change it at a societal level. So if we are able to show
Mhm,
through our lives
mhm.
and be able to show through our own experiences and our own self-love journey what that looks like,
Yeah,
then people are going to start becoming curious
yeah, I love
of
that.
how is this person even, how are they so how are they how are they radiating all this love,
Yeah.
how are they, you know. It's funny, so I was having a conversation with my mentor, and so I work in corporate America, right? And I was telling her, I was like, you touched on this earlier. You said something about purpose. And
Mhm.
I really truly believe that our this is our purpose is in, isn't one thing. I think it's different things at different times in our lives. But I think one of our main purposes in this lifetime is to learn self-love, right? I feel like at an individual level, we're meant to learn self-love so that we can show up in this world as love. And that way, when people see that, they're like, how is she so happy?
Yeah.
How is she so joyful? And the reason I bring up corporate America is because I feel like when I'm at my office, that's what I do. I literally bring as much love as I can into that work environment because I know how stressful it is. But the practices that we have for ourselves, the self-love practices that we cultivate in terms of how we speak to ourselves, what we absorb in our minds, and what we expose ourselves to, um, and what we've known of self-love and how we've cultivated for ourselves. I actually try to show that at the office so that when people see me, they automatically are like gravitated to that joy and the happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone was like, wow, you're so positive. I'm like, it has nothing to do with positivity. It has to do with the fact that I'm very optimistic and like, I just love to love to love. Like, I just, and it actually helps because when you're triggered at the office, or at least when I get triggered at the office, I'm a lot more aware of when I get triggered so that it's easier for me to step back and say, okay, where do I need to practice self love in this moment?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Wow.
think honestly, it is an individual level. And what happens is if we show up in this world as that love, a version of it, people are going to be very curious about how you can cultivate, how you did that, and how they can do it for themselves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. And, it makes perfect sense because how we kind of show up for ourselves,
Mhm.
I mean, as you grow in the spiritual journey, you start to see everything that we give ourselves is like it reflects in the world, right?
Mhm.
So obviously, if we learn to show ourselves this love, then we'll start to see a reflection of that, and it just kind of ripples and ripples and ripples, and that really is the key to healing humanity, is by healing yourself.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's basically why we're doing this. We're having all these conversations about all of this, is so that we can share
Yeah.
our stories and share our experience of, we've been there, we've been the, the hurt, angry,
Oh,
lashing out, lack of self-love, until we finally realize, ooh, there is another way.
yes.
There is another way. It's not going to be easy. It's not linear. It's going to be a roller coaster of a ride. It's an ebb and flow. It's going to be, it's going to be a crazy ride, but I honestly would not have it any other freaking way.
Same. Same. I think about when I'm in it, like when you're in it, but when you
When you're in it, it's hard.
it doesn't last forever, but when you're in it, it's hard. When you come out of it, just how much better you feel, it makes it all worth it.
Yeah,
And yeah, I'm so happy that we got to talk about this today, because the
I know
self-love journey
too.
is just so beautiful and so fun and so liberating, and you learn so much about yourself. And as you begin to see the changes in your life from what you're like giving to yourself, it's
Oh
just
yeah.
like how can you not believe in the magic of the universe?
And how can you not believe in the magic of love, period?
Right.
Right? Because the universe is love. I mean, God is love. Everything is. Uh, and I'm just so happy to have understood it and finally realize what it was.
Same, and real like unconditional love. I love what you said earlier about we must first learn how to like love ourselves without condition. How do we expect to love others? We got to love our own faults and our own, shortcomings and our own, flaws
Yeah,
before we can accept someone else with all of that, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think if I wanted to leave everyone with one thing, it's ask yourself the question tomorrow and every single day: how can I show myself love today? It could be buying yourself a damn good cookie and enjoying that damn good cookie, instead of being like, oh, I ate a cookie. Nope.
Yeah.
Love this cookie. I'm going to eat this cookie, and it's the cookie loves me. It could be as easy as that, right? Buy yourself some flowers. I honestly, I highly, highly suggest bouquet Fridays, Friday bouquets. I call them Friday bouquets, bouquet Fridays, whatever it is. It is Goddess Venus Day on Fridays. So get yourself some beautiful flowers, put it somewhere where you could see it and show yourself.
Yeah, and you don't even have to go buy them. I understand we're in a
Oh my
pandemic.
God, yeah.
For those on a budget, just go to a park or walk your neighborhood and grab a few flowers and put them in some water and, just
I've drawn myself flowers sometimes.
yeah.
Honestly, I have like a drawing of a rose that I did.
You draw them.
Remember the holographic things that I got you obsessed with? These holographic things?
You draw them.
Yeah, my niece actually started to draw roses on them, and I'm like, those are beautiful. So I did one for myself, and
I
it
love
never
that.
dies. It's right there in on my self-love altar.
Those things are so beautiful. I wish I knew like the exact name of them so I can plug them because they're that cool.
I think they are called, shoot, art something. I don't know. We'll write it somewhere. They're basically, guys, they're basically these pieces of like post-it kind of size paper, and like you get a little skewer and you write on it. It's black, and then you write on it, and there's like and it becomes a holographic, like, I'm explaining that poorly, so forget it. Just,
Yeah, I'm
we'll
like,
add a
you're
link
not gonna
somewhere.
be my charades partner. And Andy were
No,
using
I can't.
words. So we're
We
just gonna
probably lose.
we're gonna put that in the show notes for you all.
Yes, we are. Oh my God, this was such a beautiful conversation. Thank you guys for listening.
Yes, thank
Until the
you
next
so much.
conversation,
Yes, and love.
light and gratitude.
Bye.
Bye. Mwah.